I am Joshua, 32 years old, and on Christmas Eve, my own mother told me I was dead to her because I wouldn't wire 20 grand to a casino to cover up what I thought was a drunken brawl. Before I tell you about the police call that changed my entire life the next morning, let me know where you guys are watching from in the comments. I really want to know who is out there listening to this because honestly, I felt pretty alone for a long time. You know that feeling when the world is supposed to be silent? That heavy, muffled silence of a snowy night? That was my apartment in Denver on Christmas Eve. It was just me, a half-eaten container of lukewarm Thai takeout, and a small pre-lit plastic tree I'd bought at a drugstore 3 years ago. I hadn't even bothered to spread the branches out properly, so it looked kind of like a green stick that had been electrocuted. I was sitting on my couch, the one I'd bought with my first big bonus as an architect, staring at the blinking lights. Most people my age were probably at their parents' house right now. They were probably arguing about politics or laughing at bad jokes or opening presents. Me? I was enjoying the peace. Or at least I was trying to convince myself that I was enjoying it. Then, the silence shattered. My phone, which I had placed face down on the coffee table, began to vibrate. It wasn't a gentle buzz. It was an angry, violent rattle against the wood. The screen lit up the dark room. My stomach did that thing, you know what I'm talking about. That drop is not excitement. It's a physical reaction like your body is preparing for a fight or a flight. I looked at the time. 2:14 a.m. Nothing good happens at 2:14 a.m., especially not with my family. I stared at the screen. The part of me that was still a scared little boy who wanted his mommy to love him, wanted to answer. Maybe they were calling to say Merry Christmas? Maybe they realized they had been harsh earlier in the week? Maybe something was actually wrong? I slid my thumb across the screen. Hello. I didn't even get the word out fully. Joshua. Oh my God, Joshua. Pick up. Are you there? Tell me you're there. It was my mother, Nancy. But she wasn't crying. She was screaming. It was that high-pitched, hysterical shriek that I had learned to fear since I was 6 years old. In the background, I could hear sirens. Or maybe it was slot machines. It was loud, chaotic. Mom? What's going on? It's 2 a.m, I said, sitting up straighter. My heart began to hammer against my ribs. It's Tanner. It's your brother. They're going to kill him, Joshua, or they're going to lock him up forever. You have to help us. Right now. Tanner. Of course. It was always Tanner. My younger brother, the golden child. The boy who could do no wrong, even when he was doing everything wrong. Calm down, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, though my hand was shaking. Where are you? What happened? We're in Vegas, she sobbed. At the hospital. Well, the holding room at the hospital. The security. Oh God, Joshua, the security guard beat him. They broke his ribs. My baby is hurt. I frowned. Security guards don't just beat people for no reason, Mom. What did he do? He didn't do anything, she screamed, her voice cracking. It was a misunderstanding. He bumped into someone, and they jumped him. But listen to me. The casino. They are saying they're going to press charges. Felony assault. Unless we pay. They want a settlement. Right now. Tonight. Before the police file the official report. That sounds illegal, Mom, I said. That sounds like a bribe. It's a civil compromise, she yelled. Don't you dare lecture me with your lawyer talk right now. We need $20,000. 15 for the victim to drop the charges and 5 for the medical bills and the damage to the property. $20,000? I repeated. The number hung in the air like a lead weight. Mom, I don't keep $20,000 in my checking account. It's Christmas Eve. Banks are closed. You have it. I know you have it. She was frantic now. Transfer it. Use that app. Use Wire. I don't care. If you don't send it, they're taking him to the county jail. He's hurt, Joshua. He has broken ribs. He won't survive the night in a cell. Do you want your brother to die? There it was. The hook. The guilt. The weaponization of my own empathy. I rubbed my temples. Put Dad on the phone. Dad is talking to the security manager. He's begging them to wait. Joshua, please, you're the big brother. You're supposed to protect him. You're the successful one. You're the one with the fancy job and the penthouse. What is money to you compared to your brother's life? My fancy job. My penthouse. She said it with such venom. Like my success was an insult to them. Like I had stolen it from Tanner. Mom, I said, my voice hardening. If Tanner was assaulted, we need a lawyer. We don't pay hush money. If I send that money, it looks like an admission of guilt. I can call Marcus. He knows people in Nevada. He can. No! She shrieked so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. No lawyers. No police. We handle this as a family. Why are you so difficult? Why do you always have to make everything about you? Just send the money. Tanner is bleeding. I closed my eyes. I imagined Tanner, 26 years old. Handsome, charming, and completely rotten on the inside. I imagined him sitting there, probably smirking, knowing Mom was doing his dirty work. I can't do it, Mom, I said quietly. The line went silent for a second. Then her voice dropped. It wasn't a scream anymore. It was a low, guttural growl. What did you say? I said no. I'm not sending $20,000 to a casino at 2 a.m. without seeing a police report, without a lawyer, and without understanding what is actually happening. I am not an ATM. You selfish, ungrateful little... She trailed off into a string of curses that I won't repeat here, but they stung. They dug up old wounds I thought had healed. If Tanner goes to jail tonight, it is on your hands. You are killing this family. Do you hear me? You are dead to me. My thumb hovered over the red button. My chest felt tight, like a band of iron was crushing my lungs. I wanted to fix it. I wanted to be the hero. I wanted my mom to stop screaming and tell me I was a good boy. But I looked at my empty apartment. I looked at the cold Thai food. I looked at my life. A life I had built brick by brick, alone while they drained me dry. Merry Christmas, Mom, I whispered, and I hung up. I threw the phone onto the cushion next to me. The silence rushed back in, but it wasn't peaceful anymore. It was heavy. It was suffocating. I sat there, shaking, staring at the dark window, wondering if I had just made the biggest mistake of my life. Was Tanner really hurt? Was I really a monster? I didn't know it then, but hanging up that phone was the best decision I ever made. Because the emergency wasn't what it seemed. And the next morning, the police would call me, not to ask for bail money, but to tell me something that would make me wish I had cut them off years ago. Couldn't sleep, obviously. After I hung up on my mother, I paced around my living room. My heart was still racing, pumping adrenaline through my system. I felt like I had just run a marathon. Every time my phone lit up with a notification, I flinched. I turned it over, but the buzzing against the leather couch cushion sounded like an angry hornet. To understand why saying no was so hard for me, and why my mother's reaction was so violent, you have to understand the history. You have to understand the architecture of my family. I'm an architect by trade. I design structures. I understand load-bearing walls. I understand stress points. I understand that if the foundation is rotten, the house will eventually collapse. My family's foundation was built on a simple, toxic rule. Joshua gives and everyone else takes. I was the responsible one, the oldest, the one who got straight A's not because I was naturally brilliant, but because I was terrified of disappointing my father, Steve. Dad was a retired highway patrol officer. He was a man of law and order, but only when it applied to other people. Inside our house, the only law was his mood. Then there was Tanner, 6 years younger than me, and Skylar, 9 years younger. Tanner was the golden child. From the day he was born, the sun rose and set in his eyes. If Tanner broke a vase, it was because the vase shouldn't have been there. If Tanner failed a test, it was because the teacher was stupid. And me? I was the insurance policy. I remember when I was 22. I had just graduated and landed my first junior position at a firm. I was making a decent salary, but I was living on ramen noodles and sleeping on a mattress on the floor because I was saving every penny. One night, Dad sat me down at the kitchen table. He had that serious look, The one he used when he was about to manipulate me. "Joshua," he said, pouring me a glass of cheap whiskey. "Tanner got into state. We're so proud. But with the pension being what it is and your mom's health, he didn't have to finish. I knew what he wanted." "I can help," I said. I was so eager to please, so desperate for that nod of approval. I ended up paying Tanner's tuition, $28,000 over 2 years. I worked weekends. I took on freelance drafting gigs until my eyes blurred. I sacrificed my social life, my dating life, everything. And what did Tanner do? He dropped out halfway through his sophomore year because the vibes were off, and he wanted to become a professional Twitch streamer. Did I get a thank you? No. Did I get my money back? Absolutely not. When I brought it up, Mom just sighed and said, "Oh, Joshua, don't be petty. It's family money. It all comes out of the same pot." Except it wasn't the same pot. It was my pot. But the worst incident, the one that really should have been the final straw, was the car. The Porsche Macan. This happened about 3 years ago. Skylar had just graduated from college with a degree in communications. She had no job lined up, no prospects, but she had a very active Instagram account. My parents invited me over for Sunday dinner. Roast beef, mashed potatoes, my favorite. I should have known it was a trap. Halfway through the meal, Skylar started crying. Actual tears dropping into her gravy. "I just feel like a loser," she sobbed. "I can't show up to interviews in that old Honda. It sends the wrong message. Image is everything in marketing, Joshua. You know that." I chewed my roast beef slowly. "The Honda runs fine, Sky." "It's dented," she wailed. Mom put her hand on Skylar's shoulder. "Joshua, your sister needs a leg up. We found a lease. A great deal. But our credit is a little tied up with the house repairs. They wanted me to co-sign." "It's a Porsche Macan," I said, looking at the brochure on the table. "Mom, this is a luxury SUV. Why does she need a Porsche? Get a Civic. Get a Toyota." "A Toyota doesn't say success," Skylar snapped. "You haven't succeeded yet," I shot back. But then came the guilt trip. The heavy artillery. "We did everything for you," Dad said, his voice low and dangerous. "We put food on your table. We supported your dreams of being an architect. And now, when your little sister needs just a signature, not even money, just a signature, you turn your back." I felt small. I felt ungrateful. I felt like the bad guy. So I signed. I signed the lease. $850 a month. 6 months later, Skylar stopped paying. She said she was between opportunities. The dealership called me. It was my credit on the line. If I didn't pay, my credit score, which I needed for my own business loans, would tank. So for the last 2.5 years, I have been paying $850 a month for a white Porsche Macan that I never drive. Skylar drives it to brunch. She drives it to the gym. She posts photos of herself leaning against the hood with captions like #bossbabe and #selfmade. Meanwhile, I drive a 5-year-old Ford sedan. It has a scratch on the bumper and the air conditioning takes 5 minutes to kick in. I sat there in my apartment on Christmas Eve, thinking about that Porsche. I thought about the tuition. I thought about the thousands of dollars in credit card debt I had paid off for Tanner's gaming setup and Skylar's wardrobe investments. I did the math in my head. Over the last decade, I had given my family close to $150,000. That was a down payment on a house. That was a retirement fund. That was a college fund for the kids I didn't have yet. And they were calling me at 2 a.m. asking for $20,000 more? The anger finally started to overtake the fear. I wasn't just an architect to them. I was a foundation. But they didn't want to live in the house I built. They wanted to strip the copper wiring out of the walls and sell it for scrap. I walked over to the window and looked out at the snowy streets of Denver. "Not tonight," I whispered to the glass. "Not this time." But even then, as I stood there feeling a glimmer of a spine forming, I had no idea how deep the rot actually went. I thought they were just greedy. I thought they were just irresponsible. I didn't know they were criminals. And I certainly didn't know that the budget trip they were supposedly on was the key to unlocking a secret that would destroy our family forever. Let's rewind the clock about 72 hours. Before the screaming phone call. Before the police. It was December 21st. I had called my parents to ask about Christmas plans. Usually, I would fly out to Nevada to see them or they would come to Denver. But this year, things were weird. "Oh, Joshua," my mom had said, her voice sounding thin and weak. "Your father and I were just exhausted. The inflation, the medical bills. It's been a hard year." I knew the drill. This was the setup for a request. "So," she continued, "we decided to do something small. Just a little getaway. To relieve the stress. Tanner is really depressed, since he lost that job at the vape shop." Tanner hadn't lost the job. He was fired for stealing inventory, but we weren't allowed to say that. "We found this incredibly cheap package deal to Lake Tahoe," Mom said. "Budget rooms. Just a motel, really. But the mountain air will be good for Dad's heart. Skylar is coming to help take care of us." "That sounds nice, Mom," I said. "Do you need anything?" No, she sighed. "We scraped together the last of our savings. There's barely enough for gas and the motel, but we'll make do. We'll just eat sandwiches. It's about being together, right?" I felt a pang of guilt. Here I was in my warm apartment, and my aging parents were going to eat sandwiches in a motel room for Christmas. "I can send you a little cash for a nice dinner," I offered. "Like $200? "You're a good son," she said. "Send it to Skylar's Venmo." I sent the money. I felt like I had done my duty. But on December 23rd, the architect in me started noticing cracks in the design. I was scrolling through Instagram on my lunch break. I don't follow Skylar closely, her feed usually annoys me. But the algorithm pushed one of her stories to me. It was a video, a boomerang of clinking glasses. I paused it. I zoomed in. Those weren't motel glasses. That was crystal. And the liquid inside was golden and bubbly. In the background, out of focus, was a window. Through the window, I saw the wing of a plane. But not a commercial airliner. It was too small. Too sleek. I frowned. Budget trip? I clicked on her profile. She had blocked me from seeing her main posts, but she must have forgotten to block me from her stories. Amateur mistake. I went to my burner account. Yes, I have a fake Instagram account, mostly to keep tabs on ex-girlfriends and, apparently, my lying family. I looked up her profile. It was public. My jaw hit the desk. There was a photo posted 6 hours ago. The caption read, "Wheels up. Tahoe bound with the fam. Hashtag private jet, hashtag high life, hashtag blessed." They were standing on the tarmac next to a Gulf Stream. My father, who supposedly couldn't afford his heart medication, was wearing a new leather jacket. My mother was holding a Louis Vuitton duffel bag. Tanner was wearing sunglasses that I knew cost at least $300. I felt a cold flush of heat rise up my neck. Maybe it's a prop? I thought. Maybe they just posed next to someone else's plane? I kept scrolling. Next photo, the hotel room. It wasn't a motel. It was a suite. A multi-room suite with a fireplace and a balcony overlooking the lake. I quickly Googled the resort tag. The Edgewood Tahoe. Suites started at $1,200 a night during Christmas week. I felt sick. Physically sick. I had just sent them $200 for sandwiches. And they were staying in a room that cost more than my mortgage. But the kicker, the detail that really made my blood boil, was the car. It was a video reel posted by Tanner. The camera panned low, sweeping over the sleek, aggressive lines of a bright yellow SUV. A Lamborghini Urus. Tanner's voice was behind the camera, loud and obnoxious. "Yeah, baby. That's how we roll. King of the road. 640 horsepower. Let's go." He climbed into the driver's seat. He revved the engine. The sound was a guttural roar that echoed off the hotel walls. I paused the video again. I looked at the license plate. It was a rental plate. I did some quick math. Private jet charter, even a shared leg, $5,000 minimum. Suite for 3 nights, $4,000. Lamborghini rental, $1,500 a day. Food, drinks, gambling, thousands. This wasn't a budget trip. This was a 5-star luxury bender. Where did the money come from? That was the question that haunted me. Did Dad cash out his pension? Did they take out a second mortgage? Did Skylar find a rich boyfriend? I sat at my desk, staring at the screen. The betrayal tasted like ash in my mouth. They had lied to me, not just a little white lie. They had constructed an entire elaborate fiction about their poverty to extract $200 from me, while they were burning through tens of thousands of dollars. Why? Why lie? If they had the money, why beg me for scraps? Unless the money wasn't theirs. I checked my bank accounts. Nothing missing. I checked my credit cards. No unusual charges. I breathed a sigh of relief. Okay, I thought, they're being idiots, but at least they aren't stealing from me directly. I was wrong. I was so incredibly wrong. I didn't know it then, but looking at that yellow Lamborghini was looking at the crime scene. I wasn't just looking at a rental car. I was looking at the instrument of my own destruction. I closed the browser. I went back to work, but I couldn't focus. I kept seeing that yellow car. I kept hearing Tanner's laugh. I decided to wait. I wouldn't confront them yet. I would let them come back, and then I would show them the screenshots. I would demand an explanation, but they didn't come back. Instead, 24 hours later, my phone rang at 2 a.m., and suddenly the Lamborghini, the suite, the champagne, it all made sense in the worst possible way. They weren't celebrating. They were running, and they had hit a wall. Back to Christmas Eve. 2:30 a.m. I had hung up on my mother. The apartment was quiet again, but my phone was having a seizure. Buzz, buzz, buzz. 61 missed calls. 147 text messages. I'm not exaggerating. I put the phone on Do Not Disturb, but the screen kept lighting up like a strobe light in a horror movie. I made the mistake of looking at the notifications. Skylar, 2:32 a.m., pick up the phone, you psycho. Skylar, 2:33 a.m., he's bleeding, Joshua. They are dragging him away. Skylar, 2:35 a.m., I hope you rot in hell. You have plenty of money. Why do you hate us? Then came the voicemail from my father. Now, my father, Steve, is a man who knows how to use his voice. He was a cop for 30 years. He knows how to sound authoritative. He knows how to sound disappointed. I pressed play on the speakerphone. The room filled with his gravelly baritone. Joshua, it's your father. I don't know what game you're playing, son, but this isn't the time. Your mother is having a panic attack. Her heart can't take this. Tanner he's in a bad spot. We need the family to pull together. You're the eldest. It's your duty. I expect that transfer confirmation in the next 10 minutes. Don't make me come to Denver, Joshua, because if I have to come there to get the money, you and I are going to have a very different conversation. The threat hung in the air. Don't make me come to Denver. I felt like I was 12 years old again, hearing his heavy boots coming down the hallway after I'd forgotten to mow the lawn. The fear was primal. But then I remembered the Lamborghini. I remembered the private jet. I remembered the lies. They have money, I told myself. They rented a Urus. They can pay the bail. I sat on the floor, leaning against the couch, hugging my knees. Why were they so desperate for my $20,000 specifically? If they had enough cash flow to charter a jet, why did a $20,000 emergency fund break them? That was the piece of the puzzle that didn't fit. Maybe they were tapped out. Maybe they spent the very last dime on the trip and now they were stuck. My phone lit up again. This time it was a TikTok notification. Skylar had tagged me. My blood ran cold. I opened the app. She was live. Or she had been live a few minutes ago. The video was titled, "My brother is a monster. Please help." I clicked play. Skylar was sitting on the floor of a hotel hallway. Her mascara was running down her cheeks. She looked pathetic and beautiful in that tragic social media influencer way. "Guys," she sniffled, looking directly into the camera lens. "I don't usually do this, but my family is in crisis. My brother Tanner, he was attacked tonight, brutally attacked, and we are stuck in Vegas. And my older brother, Joshua," she paused for dramatic effect. "He's a millionaire architect. He lives in a penthouse, and he just told my mom to drop dead. He won't help us with the hospital bills. He won't help us save Tanner." He laughed at us. The comments were rolling in on the side of the screen. At user 123, what a scumbag. At Love and Light, drop his at. We will ruin him. At Tanner fan, justice for Tanner. And then the kicker. A link popped up. GoFundMe. Help save Tanner from corrupt Vegas police. She was monetizing the crisis in real time. I stared at the screen, paralyzed. They were destroying my reputation. They were turning strangers against me. I wanted to comment. I wanted to scream. They rented a Lamborghini yesterday. But I knew how the internet worked. Facts didn't matter. Emotion mattered. And Skylar was winning the emotional war. I felt a wave of nausea. This was abuse. This was digital, psychological, financial warfare. And it was coming from the people who were supposed to love me. I stood up. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were shaking so hard I spilled half of it on the counter. I had to make a choice. Choice A, cave. Send the money. Stop the harassment. Be the hero. Save Tanner again. Choice B, stand my ground. Let the world burn. Let them hate me. I looked at the water dripping off the counter. I thought about the divorce I went through 2 years ago. My ex-wife, Sarah, had left me because she said, I can't be married to you and your family, Joshua. There are 3 people in this marriage, and 2 of them are your parents. She was right. I had lost the love of my life because I couldn't say no to them. I wasn't going to lose myself too. I walked back to the phone. I didn't text back. I didn't call back. I turned the phone off completely. Power down. The screen went black. The silence returned. But this time it wasn't scary. It was defiant. I went into my bedroom. I crawled into bed. I pulled the duvet over my head. I didn't sleep, of course. I lay there, staring at the darkness, listening to the wind howl outside, waiting for the inevitable fallout. I expected my dad to bang on my door the next day. I expected a lawsuit, but I didn't expect the call that actually came. Because while I was lying there worrying about being a bad brother, the real story was unfolding in a Las Vegas holding cell. And the person sitting in that cell wasn't just a drunk kid who got into a fight. He was a criminal mastermind who had been using my name to destroy my life. December 26th, 8 a.m. I woke up with a headache that felt like someone had driven a railroad spike through my temple. The sun was glaring off the snow outside, piercing through my blinds. I reached for my phone, then remembered I had turned it off. I hesitated. Turning it on meant letting the monsters back in. But I had to know. I held the power button. The Apple logo appeared. As soon as the signal connected, the device nearly vibrated off the nightstand. Voicemails, texts, emails. But before I could check any of them, a call came through. Unknown number. Area code 702. Las Vegas. My stomach dropped. Here we go, I thought. This is Dad calling from a burner phone. I answered, ready to fight. Listen, Dad. I'm not. Is this Mr. Joshua Hayes? The voice wasn't my father's. It was crisp, professional, and devoid of emotion. I sat up. Yes. Who is this? This is Officer Ramirez with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, Financial Crimes Division. Financial crimes? My confusion spiked. Financial crimes? You mean assault? My mother said my brother was in a fight. There was a pause on the other end. The sound of papers shuffling. Mr. Hayes, are you currently in Las Vegas? No, I'm in Denver. I've been in Denver all week. Okay, can you verify your date of birth and the last 4 digits of your social security number? I gave him the information. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Mr. Hayes, Officer Ramirez said, his tone shifting slightly. We have an individual in custody. He was arrested last night at the Edgewood Resort. He was originally detained for a physical altercation with a valet attendant, but upon processing, we discovered significant discrepancies in his identification. That's my brother, I said. Tanner Hayes. Well, that's the problem, sir. The individual identified himself as Joshua Hayes. The room spun. Excuse me? He was in possession of a Colorado driver's license with your name and information, but his photo, He also had several credit cards issued in the name of Joshua Hayes. He was driving a rented Lamborghini Urus, also leased under the name Joshua Hayes. Couldn't breathe. I stood up, tangling my legs in the sheets, and stumbled against the wall. He pretended to be me? It goes deeper than that, sir. We ran a check. There is a freshly opened line of casino credit, a marker for $50,000 in your name. It's maxed out. And the vehicle? The rental agency is reporting it as attempted grand theft because he tried to bypass the return geofence. My knees gave out. I slid down the wall until I hit the floor. Identity theft. It wasn't just a budget trip. It wasn't just borrowing money. Tanner had stolen my life. He had forged a license, probably using my old expired one I left at my parents' house as a template. He had opened credit cards. He had taken out a casino marker. Officer, I gasped. I didn't authorize any of this. I'm in Denver. I can prove it. My office has security logs. My apartment building has cameras. That's good to hear, Mr. Hayes, because right now, on paper, you owe the casino $50,000, and you are facing charges for assault and fraud. Then the realization hit me like a physical blow. The $20,000. Officer, my parents called me last night at 2 a.m. They asked for $20,000. They said it was for a settlement. A settlement? Ramirez scoffed. Sir, bail was set at $5,000. If they were asking for 20 grand, they weren't trying to bail him out. I closed my eyes, and the pieces clicked together with a sickening precision. The Lamborghini, the private jet, the champagne. They didn't pay for any of it. I did. Or rather, the credit they stole in my name did. And when Tanner lost the money gambling, when the house of cards started to fall and he got into that fight, they needed $20,000 not to fix the assault, but to run. They needed cash to get him out of the state or maybe out of the country before the fingerprints came back and proved he wasn't Joshua Hayes. They weren't trying to save him from jail. They were trying to help him escape after he had framed me. Mr. Hayes? Are you still there? I'm here, I whispered. We need you to come to Las Vegas. We need you to make a formal statement. If this is identity theft, we need you to press charges. Otherwise, the debt stays in your name. Press charges. Against my brother. And what about my parents? They knew. They had to know. They were on the plane. They were in the car. They called me demanding the money. Officer? I said, my voice trembling with a rage so cold it felt like ice in my veins. Are my parents there? Yes, sir. Steve and Nancy Hayes. They are currently in the waiting area. They've been trying to get access to the suspect. Don't let them leave, I said. I'm getting on the next flight. I hung up. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. A strange calm washed over me. It was the calm of a man who watches his house burn down and realizes he doesn't have to fix the roof anymore. I stood up. I walked to my closet. I packed a bag. I wasn't going to Vegas to save my family. I was going to Vegas to bury them. The flight to Las Vegas was a blur. I sat in seat 14A, staring out at the clouds, not feeling anything. No sadness. No fear. Just pure, unadulterated resolve. I had called Marcus, my college friend and a ruthless attorney. Meet me at the station, I told him. Bring everything. The heavy artillery. When I landed, Marcus was waiting at the curb in his Tesla. He took one look at my face and didn't ask if I was okay. He just nodded. I pulled your credit report on the way over, Marcus said as we merged onto the highway. It's a bloodbath, Josh. 3 new cards opened in the last month. The casino marker. The car rental. They even tried to finance a Rolex 2 days ago, but it was declined. We're going to fix it, I said. We will. But you know what this means, right? To clear your name, you have to pin it on Tanner. It's a felony. He's looking at 5 to 10 years minimum. Identity theft, wire fraud, grand larceny. Good, I said. Marcus glanced at me. And your parents? If they knew, that's conspiracy. Aiding and abetting. They knew, Marcus. They were riding in the Lamborghini. We pulled up to the police station. It was a drab, beige building that smelled of stale coffee and misery. We walked into the lobby, and there they were. Mom was sitting on a plastic bench, weeping into a tissue. Dad was pacing back and forth, talking aggressively into his phone. Skylar was sitting on the floor, editing something on her phone. Probably another TikTok sob story. They looked up when I walked in. For a split second, relief washed over Mom's face. She thought I had come to pay. She thought the ATM had arrived. Joshua! She jumped up and ran toward me, arms open. Oh, thank God. I knew you wouldn't abandon us. I knew you had a heart. She tried to hug me. I stepped back. I didn't just step back. I recoiled as if she were radioactive. She froze. Her arms fell to her sides. Joshua, don't touch me, I said. My voice was quiet, but it echoed in the lobby. Dad hung up his phone and marched over. He puffed his chest out, trying to activate that old intimidation mode. About time you showed up, he barked. Do you have the check? The lawyer says if we pay the casino now, they might drop the fraud charges before the DA sees them. The fraud charges, I repeated. You mean the fact that he pretended to be me? Dad's eyes flickered. He looked away. It was a misunderstanding. He didn't have his ID, so he used the info he had memorized. It's not a big deal, Joshua. We can fix the paperwork later. Just pay the bill. Not a big deal? I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. He opened a $50,000 line of credit in my name, Dad. He ruined my credit score. He stole my identity. He's your brother, Mom screamed. He needed a break. He's had such a hard year. Why are you so obsessed with money? You can make more money. He can't make more time. I'm not here to pay, I said, looking her dead in the eye. Then why are you here? Skylar asked from the floor, phone still in hand. I'm here to give a statement, I said. I motioned to Marcus. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a file. Officer, I called out to the desk sergeant. I'm Joshua Hayes, the real Joshua Hayes. I'm here to meet with Detective Ramirez. Officer Ramirez appeared from the back hallway. He looked from me to Tanner, who was currently being led down the hall in handcuffs, and then to my parents. Mr. Hayes, Ramirez said, please come with me. I started to walk toward the secure door. Dad grabbed my arm. His grip was tight, painful. If you go through that door, he hissed, his face inches from mine. You destroy this family. You send your brother to prison. You make your mother homeless because we put the house up as collateral for the other loans. Do you hear me? You walk through that door, and you have no father. I looked down at his hand on my arm. I looked at his face. A face I had spent my whole life trying to please. A face that had looked at me with disappointment no matter what I achieved. I realized then that I never actually had a father. I had a manager. I had a leech. I ripped my arm away. I have a lawyer, I said, and I have a life, and none of you are part of it anymore. I turned my back on them. Mom started wailing. It was a theatrical, banshee scream meant to shame me. My son is a traitor. I didn't look back. I walked through the security door. I heard the heavy click of the lock engaging behind me, and for the first time in 32 years, I felt light. I sat down in the interrogation room. Ramirez put a tape recorder on the table. State your name for the record, he said. Joshua Hayes, I said, and I would like to report a theft. What was stolen? Everything, I said, but I'm taking it back. Walking out of that interrogation room was the first step. Watching the consequences unfold over the next few months was an entirely different journey. It was like watching a slow-motion car crash. One that I had been sitting in the passenger seat of for 30 years, but had finally stepped out of just before impact. The legal process in America isn't like the movies. It's slow. It's grinding. It smells like cheap floor wax and desperation. Marcus, my lawyer, was a shark. He didn't just defend me, he went on the offensive. We filed affidavits regarding the credit card fraud. We submitted the security footage from my office building in Denver, proving I was 1,000 miles away when Joshua Hayes was signing markers at the casino. The district attorney didn't take long to connect the dots. Tanner wasn't just a gambler, He was a felon. The charges kept piling up: identity theft, wire fraud, forgery, and attempted grand larceny for the Lamborghini. The arraignment hearing was the last time I saw my family in the same room. I sat in the back row. I didn't have to be there, but I needed to see it. I needed to know it was real. Tanner walked in wearing an orange jumpsuit. The arrogance was gone. He looked small. He looked like a child who had finally been told no for the first time in his life. When the judge read out the charges and set bail at $100,000, cash only, no bondsman due to the flight risk, Tanner looked at the gallery. He looked for Mom and Dad. They were there, sitting 2 rows ahead of me. I saw my father's shoulders slump. I saw my mother bury her face in her hands. They didn't have the money. They had spent it on the private jet. They had spent it on the suite. They had gambled the rest. And the $20,000 they had tried to extort from me was supposed to be their parachute. Without it, they were in freefall. The fallout hit Skylar first. The internet is a fickle beast. One day you're the victim. The next, you're the villain. After the news broke that Tanner Hayes had been arrested for impersonating his brother, the people who had donated to Skylar's GoFundMe started asking questions. Then someone found the photos, the deleted ones, the Lamborghini, the champagne. The comments section turned into a war zone. You begged for money while flying private? Scammers. I want my donation back. GoFundMe froze the account and launched an investigation for fraud. Skylar didn't just lose the money. She lost her reputation. She lost her brand deals. She posted a tearful apology video, blaming everything on Tanner, claiming she was a victim too. But nobody bought it. Then came the Porsche. This was a moment of petty satisfaction for me, I admit. Since the lease was in my name and the payments were months behind, I exercised my right as the primary leaseholder. I called the dealership and told them exactly where the car was parked. I wasn't there to see it, but a neighbor sent me a video. A tow truck lifting the white Porsche Macan out of my parents' driveway in North Las Vegas. Skylar was running down the driveway in her pajamas, screaming at the driver, while my neighbors watched from their porches. It was the end of the illusion. The perfect image they had curated was being towed away to an impound lot. But the real blow, the one that shattered the family for good, was the house. I learned about this during a deposition a month later. I was sitting across from my parents' attorney, a tired-looking public defender because they could no longer afford private counsel. We were going over the assets. The bank was involved now. Mr. Hayes, the attorney said, shuffling through papers. Are you aware that your parents took out a 3rd mortgage on their property in November? I didn't know, I said, but I'm not surprised. They leveraged the equity to pay off a previous gambling debt for Tanner, and to fund other expenses. He meant the trip. They had literally bet the house on one last high-roller vacation, assuming they could win it back at the tables, or that I would bail them out when the bill came due. With Tanner's legal fees and the seizure of assets, the attorney continued, they are in default. The foreclosure process has begun. I looked at my parents. They were sitting at the far end of the table. They looked 10 years older than they had at Christmas. My father, the proud retired cop, looked gray and defeated. My mother looked hollow. Joshua, my dad said. His voice was raspy. It's the house. It's the home you grew up in. I know, I said. We have nowhere to go, he whispered. If we lose the house, we're on the street. Your mother is sick. He was doing it again, pushing the buttons, trying to find the access code to my wallet. I can't help you, I said, and for the first time it wasn't out of anger. It was out of fact. I have my own legal bills to pay to clear my name. And frankly, Dad, you did this. You signed the papers. You enabled him. We did it for family. Mom snapped, a flash of her old fire returning. We stick together. That's what family does. No, I said, standing up. That's what a gang does. A family protects each other. You didn't protect me. You served me up on a platter to save Tanner. You were ready to let me take the fall for a felony just so he wouldn't have to face the consequences. I looked at Marcus. I'm done here. We walked out. 6 months later, the gavel fell. Tanner accepted a plea deal. To avoid a trial that would have exposed even more of the family's dirty laundry, he pleaded guilty to identity theft and wire fraud. He was sentenced to 3 years in state prison, followed by 5 years of probation. He was also ordered to pay restitution to the casino, to the rental agency, and to me. I knew I'd never see a dime of that money, but the judgment was symbolic. It was the legal system confirming that I was the victim, not the villain. The day Tanner was transferred to the correctional facility, my parents were evicted. I didn't go. I didn't want to see it, but I heard about it. They moved into a small, one-bedroom apartment on the bad side of town, the only place that would take them with their ruined credit and eviction record. Skylar moved in with a boyfriend she had met online, disappearing from social media entirely. My life, on the other hand, was quiet. It was a strange adjustment. For years, my adrenaline was always spiking. Every phone call was a crisis. Every text was a demand. Now, my phone would sit on my desk for hours silent. I focused on my work. With the mental bandwidth I reclaimed from managing my family's chaos, I landed the biggest project of my career, a sustainable housing complex in downtown Denver. I was promoted to senior partner at the firm. My salary increased significantly, but for the first time, the money stayed in my account. I started seeing a therapist to deal with the guilt. Because there was guilt. You don't just turn off 30 years of conditioning overnight. There were nights I woke up sweating, reaching for my checkbook, convinced my mother was crying in the next room. But slowly, the fog lifted. I realized that by cutting them off, I hadn't killed them. They were surviving. They were miserable, yes, but they were alive. They were facing the consequences of their own actions for the first time. I had stopped being their god and allowed them to be human. And in that space, in that silence, I found room for something new. I found room for people who didn't want my money. I found room for Olivia. We met at a coffee shop. Cliché, I know. But she didn't know I was an architect. She didn't know about the drama. She just liked my dog. We started dating. And for the first few months, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was waiting for her to ask for a loan. I was waiting for her to create a crisis. But she never did. She bought me dinner sometimes. She asked how my day was and actually listened to the answer. It was terrifying. And it was wonderful. As the year rolled on, and the snow started to fall in Denver again, I realized that the anniversary was approaching. The 1-year mark of the 2 a.m. phone call. I was ready. I wasn't the same man who sat on that couch in the dark. I had rebuilt my foundation. And this time there were no cracks. December 24th. 1 year later. The smell of Christmas is different when it's not tainted by fear. In my new house, a mid-century modern remodel I had designed myself, the air smelled of pine needles, roasting rosemary, and wood smoke. Real wood smoke. Not the metaphorical smoke of a bridge burning. I was in the kitchen chopping vegetables. A glass of Pinot Noir sat on the counter. In the living room, a real Christmas tree, 12 feet tall and lush, touched the vaulted ceiling. It was covered in ornaments, not expensive ones, but meaningful ones. An ornament from a trip Olivia and I took to Santa Fe. A wooden star my colleague gave me. Olivia was by the fireplace, adjusting the stockings. She was wearing one of my oversized flannels and humming a jazz version of Jingle Bells. "Josh," she called out, "do you think the dog needs a stocking? I feel like he's been a very good boy this year." I smiled. A genuine, easy smile that reached my eyes. "He's definitely getting a stocking. Just don't put chocolate in it." It was peaceful. It was boring. And it was the best night of my life. But the past has a way of trying to knock on the door, even when you've changed the locks. Earlier that morning, I had gone to my P.O. box. I kept a P.O. box for any lingering mail from the old life, so no one would have my home address. There was one letter inside. The envelope was plain white. The return address was stamped in red ink. Nevada Department of Corrections. It was from Tanner. I hadn't opened it immediately. I brought it home and left it on the entryway table. It sat there all day, a small white rectangle of toxicity threatening to ruin the vibe. Now, as the snow fell softly outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, I walked over to the table. I picked it up. Olivia looked up. She saw the change in my posture. She knew about the history. I had told her everything on our third date because I wasn't going to hide anymore. "Is that from him?" she asked softly. "Yeah. You don't have to open it, you know?" "I know," I said. "But I want to." I opened the envelope. A single sheet of lined yellow paper was inside. Tanner's handwriting was messy, just like it had been when we were kids. "Hey Josh, Merry Christmas, I guess. Sucks in here. The food is garbage and it's freezing. Look, I know you're probably still mad. I get it. But Mom told me you got promoted. Congrats. I'm writing because I need some stuff. Commissary is expensive. I need toothpaste, ramen, maybe some stamps. Dad can't send anything because they're broke. If you could just put $50 on my books, it would mean a lot. It's Christmas, bro. Let bygones be bygones. We're blood. I promise when I get out, I'll pay you back. I have a business idea involving crypto. It's gonna be huge. Tanner." I stared at the letter. He hadn't changed. Not a single bit. There was no apology. No remorse. No acknowledgement that he had committed a felony against me. Just a request for money. Just a manipulation tactic. It's Christmas, bro. And the delusion that he would pay me back with a crypto scheme. A year ago, this letter would have ruined my night. I would have felt guilty. I would have wondered if I was being too harsh. I might have even sent the $50 just to make the guilt go away. But tonight, I felt nothing but pity. I realized that Tanner was in a prison of his own making, but he had been in a mental prison long before the bars closed behind him. He was trapped in a cycle of entitlement and failure, and my parents were trapped right there with him, even on the outside. I walked over to the fireplace. "What does it say?" Olivia asked. "Same old song," I said. "He wants $50. Are you going to send it?" "No." I tossed the letter into the fire. We watched as the flames licked the yellow paper. The words were blood curled up, turned black, and disintegrated into ash. "Blood doesn't make you family," I said quietly, watching the sparks fly up the chimney. "Love makes you family. Respect makes you family." I turned back to Olivia. She walked over and wrapped her arms around my waist. She smelled like vanilla and peace. "I'm proud of you," she said. "I'm proud of me too," I admitted. My phone was on the counter. I picked it up. I went to my blocked contacts list. I scrolled past Mom, Dad, Tanner, Skylar. I didn't unblock them. I didn't check if they had tried to call. I just looked at the names and felt detached. They were just characters in a story I used to live in. I put the phone down and poured 2 glasses of wine. "To boundaries," I said, raising my glass. "To peace," Olivia replied, clinking her glass against mine. We sat on the rug in front of the fire, watching the snow fall. I thought about the college fund I had started, not for a sibling, but for the future children I hoped to have one day. I thought about the inheritance I would build, one that wouldn't be squandered on gambling and image, but used to build something lasting. At 2 a.m., the time when the nightmare had started exactly 1 year ago, I was fast asleep. My phone was on silent. My doors were locked. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I had finally learned the most expensive lesson of my life, but it was worth every penny of the $150,000 I had lost over the years. I learned that you cannot save people who are determined to drown, especially if they are trying to use you as a life raft. I learned that no is a complete sentence. And I learned that the best Christmas gift you can give yourself isn't under the tree. It's the peace of mind that comes from knowing you are safe, you are valued, and you are free. Thank you for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to relive those moments, but I shared it because I know I'm not alone. If there is one thing I want you to take away from this, it's this: toxic loyalty is not love. We are raised to believe that family is everything, that we owe our parents and siblings our unwavering support no matter what. But there is a line. When support turns into exploitation, when love turns into manipulation, and when helping actually means enabling destructive behavior, you have a moral obligation to stop. Setting boundaries with toxic family members is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of survival. It feels unnatural at first, like severing a limb, but sometimes you have to cut off the dead weight to save the rest of the body. You are not a bank. You are not a rehabilitation center. You are a human being worthy of respect. If you are the Joshua of your family, the responsible one, the fixer, the ATM, please look at your life. Are you building your own future, or are you financing their mistakes? It is okay to choose yourself. It is okay to walk away. I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to draw a hard line with a family member to save your own sanity? Or, if this story resonated with you and you agree that peace is worth more than toxic loyalty, just comment good below. That one word tells me you understand the value of self-respect. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of truth and resilience. Stay strong and protect your peace.